Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-host,
Grandma Gail.
Okay, we are going to answer some questions that our listeners wrote in on Instagram. We couldn't get to all of them, so we're going to answer some here.
Okay, Kim, shoot me the first question.
Okay. How to nudge a boyfriend of 2.5 years together, 28 and 29 years old, toward the next step / proposal.
I think they have to have a conversation. Is this where he wants to go or she wants to go? If he says, I'm not ready, after 2.5 years, there's something definitely wrong with the relationship. So I think that has to be looked at. If it's just a matter of timing and he's waiting for the exact right moment, say, you know what, there'll never be a perfect time. Let's just do it over the weekend, or let's just do it the next month. Push the envelope.
Yeah, because you'd rather know than be like guessing and then waste your time.
Well, it's not only waste your time, be frustrated and then be angry.
Right. Okay, so someone said, there's some food questions actually. Your least favorite food?
I think my least favorite food would be quinoa. I find that.
You mean
like,
quinoa?
Quinoa. I find that grain just so innocuous.
So good. What do you mean?
I know you love it, and I've tasted it a million times from your plate. I don't get it. It has no flavor.
It's a good base though, like added to things.
Oh, God. So is a French fry.
I do not like tuna fish. The idea of it grosses me out.
Okay. And I love tuna.
Someone said, what do you love as a late night snack?
I never have a late night snack. I never snack at night. I eat if I have a nice meal. I'll sometimes have a little sweet dessert or a little bowl of ice cream or whatever, and I do not snack after dinner.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot, too much probably. I always do like cereal of some sort, granola or like popcorn or like chocolate, kind of everything. Okay, secret to staying young at heart.
Listen to young people. That's how to stay young at heart. Mm-hmm. You can't listen to all your old friends. You got to branch out and get younger friends.
Someone said, do women need to have a lot of financial independence, career, or trust fund?
Well, it depends on the woman. I mean, I think every woman, if they make money, should keep it in a little separate area for a rainy day if they need it, or if it needs to be part of the marriage or the relationship to fund each other. It should be discussed. I do think it's always good to have a little bit, whether you're a man or a woman, a little bit of money on the side that is strictly yours and nobody can touch in case of a rainy day.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, someone said, what did Grandma do as a career?
Grandma's career was raising a family and loving it. Mm-hmm. That was more than I could ever have wanted out of any career. I enjoyed every minute of it.
They also want to know how many kids you have.
Grandma had 2 children, a wonderful daughter and son.
Someone actually wrote in, how would you describe your daughter? So my mom.
My daughter is the light of my life. She's been a wonderful daughter, and she's a kind, good person.
Mm-hmm. And we have told this story, but not in a long time. So just like a short version of how you met Poppy.
Well, I met Poppy fixed up by my aunt and uncle and his parents. They were friends. So we met through family friends and through relatives, actually, not family friends. Mm-hmm. And we went on a date, and I guess a little less than a year later, we were married.
So this week we have Tanisha Wood on the episode. She created the Broom List, which is the first matchmaking firm for Black professionals. And we loved her. We thought that she made so many great, valid points about dating in modern times.
And she's actually reaching out to a different audience than is on Tinder or on these other apps. She's really not a dating app. She's more of a matchmaking service for professionals that have in the Black community. So it's very, very interesting. And I loved her. I thought she was really, really terrific.
Yeah, we hope you guys enjoy. So, everyone, we are joined by Tanisha Wood. She is a dating coach and matchmaker. She created the Broom List, which is the first matchmaking firm for Black professionals. Tanisha, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, ladies.
We want to hear the difference between what you do and what other matchmaking apps do. So I'm really excited. This should be good.
Awesome. I'm excited to tell you guys about it.
So, let's start with your age, where you live, and your relationship status.
Yes. So I am 37. I live in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and I'm in a relationship.
What is your professional background? Why did you become a dating coach?
Yeah. So I, prior to becoming a matchmaker, I spent many years working in sales and, working at corporate. And as a part of my career, I was traveling around to like several major cities and, lived in those cities and found it really hard to date at times. So I grew up in Minneapolis, and then my first job out of school was in San Francisco. So when I moved to San Francisco, I knew nobody, had this job, and was really excited to be in a new city and a new place. And now this is like circa 2008 timeframe. So we have to remember, like, dating apps weren't even apps at the time. You were literally logging on to like Match.com or OkCupid on your computer. But anyway, because I didn't know anybody, I started dating online, and it was pretty easy for me in terms of like meeting people, because at the time, like, my mission was really to like explore the city, get to know people, but I wasn't necessarily like, I need to find a serious relationship right now. So started meeting a lot of guys, and, a lot of them were great. They were cool. They were nice, but when there's just not that like spark or the thing, but like nothing wrong with them. Just
Grandma Gail calls it the tingle.
The tingle. Yes. You don't get the tingle. And so, but because, I was still getting to know people, I didn't feel the need to like drop them. I just kept them around, but, on a friendship level. So as I started meeting girlfriends, they were like, oh, how have you met these guys? Like, how are you meeting these guys? I'm like, oh, I'm on Match.com. Like, let me help you set up a profile. And then eventually when I moved to New York, same thing where, I was meeting people, was going out a lot, meeting guys on apps, became friends with them. And then friends would ask, can you hook me up? So I was kind of that person. And eventually I wasn't really loving, my sales job and corporate life. And so started out sort of just helping people with profiles, eventually started my podcast and giving out advice. And that's how I really got into the coaching aspect of it. And then during the pandemic, I found that people had like, they'd sort of reached their limits in a way with coaching, where they're like, okay, I've done the work. A lot of my clients were like, okay, I feel like I've done the work. I feel like we've gotten a lot done, but like, I'm ready to actually meet somebody. Like, can you introduce me to somebody? And so that's when I started the Broom List. So I started the Broom List in November of 2020, just in response to, what clients were asking for, but also knowing that as Black professionals, what happens is sometimes the higher you ascend in your career, the harder and harder it becomes to meet people, because the less and less Black people that you tend to be around. And so, like I said, I've struggled with it. I've seen many of my friends struggle with it. So this was really my answer to, bring everybody together and create this platform.
Did you use the Broom List to find your current partner?
No, we actually met prior to starting the Broom List. He had reached out to me after seeing me on Instagram, or no, he saw me on Tinder, then decided to reach out to me on Instagram, which at the time I was like, stay on the platform that you meet people on. So it was a little creepy, but it worked out.
Well, as old as time nowadays. That's the modern love story.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about the matchmaking process with the Broom List. Like, how do you decide if one person's going to be good with another?
Yeah. So I have quite an intensive process. So by the time I actually, set people up to go on a date, like, they've kind of been through the ringer with me. So the first thing that I do with clients is we do a video call that's about 2 hours, and we talk about everything from communication styles to therapy to sex to family background, relationship history, religion, politics, just everything that helps me to understand exactly who people are. Additionally, I do a home tour. So you guys remember the show MTV Cribs?
Of course.
Yeah. So people show me around their home.
No.
It was like, when was that? The early 2000s?
Yeah, probably early 2000s.
Yeah, they would be like, blah, 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 and welcome to my crib. And MTV would do like a house tour of a.
All right.
When you're in somebody's home, like, I think you really get a sense of who they are. There's just so much that, like, doesn't come up in everyday conversation. But when you're in somebody's home, like you see the kind of art that they're into, you see how they like to keep their space, you see the things that maybe they don't
They're
have.
a slob or they're not a slob.
That too.
Pick up the towels in the bathroom. Kind of simple. Okay.
But yeah, it just really gives such insight into who people are. And then the last thing I do is I talk to a friend or family member about them. So I do a little bit of a reference check and see what the people closest to them think about them. And so sort of my thought process behind that is, when you are really like searching for a serious relationship, I want all the other factors to be out of the way. Like, I don't want you to wonder if this person's on the same page as you, what their lifestyle is like. All I want you to do on a date is focus on, is there chemistry? Is there that tingle? Do I feel the thing? Not, do we actually want the same things out of life?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a really good point, because I feel like so much of the time you're like, but they check all these boxes and I invested all this time to figure it out. And now you're like, well, I don't know if the connection was there from the beginning, but if from the beginning that they already fit a certain profile. That's why, like, when we're always talking about meeting someone at a bar, it's like, well, then you have to do the dirty work after you already are emotionally invested in someone.
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Because how often have you heard somebody say, I really like him, and then 3 months later I find out, and it's like some big revelation where it's like it's a non-starter. Like, oh, I find out this person never wants to get married, or they never want kids, or they're in horrible financial shape, whatever it might be. But it's like, let's just get it all out up front. Exactly.
Now, are any of your clients interracial, or are they all always?
All of my clients are Black professionals, so all of them are required to have a college degree, make over 75K, and then most importantly want something long-term and committed.
Okay. All right, very interesting.
And what's the average age of most of your clients?
So everybody I work with is above 28, but the average age is around 32 to 36.
So they're established in their careers,
right?
Basically. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And no one should get married before 30, so that's why I start at 28.
Really? Oh, yeah. You're talking to somebody who got married at 21. I think if you found the right person after you're 25, I don't think anybody should get married before they're 25, but 25 to 30 is a good time to sort of make a commitment to somebody. I think it's too late, then you might miss the boat on other family issues and having children and all.
Yeah, but now there's like all of this
but you know what? It's still better if you don't have to go that way. I mean, we have alternatives now and it's fabulous, but young marriages are all right too if the partners are copacetic.
Well, Tanisha, what's your reasoning for wanting to be 30?
Yeah, so the human brain actually doesn't fully finishing develop until around like 26 to 28 is when it's actually like, all right, you're a fully formed person where you're not always thinking with the emotional side of your brain, but you're using the logical side of it as well. And so that was my big reason, is just like, at that point at 28, all right, you're fully grown, you've had a career, you're somewhat established in it. And I want two people to be like truly ready when they come together and not going on just, I like this person. Like, obviously that's necessary, but that's not what makes things last. You really do have to be on the same page and certain about that.
I feel that I'm an old soul and that I'm mature about a lot of things, but I can confidently, confidently say my brain is not developed. I'm aware of that fact. That's why
it's like, do you ever just look back and you like about something like you did, and whether it was a relationship or just other things in life, and you're like, what was I thinking? Right.
Yeah, of course.
And truthfully, when you're young, you're probably not.
Yeah. But then don't you even later in life, like if you look at something 5 years ago, do you ever think, what was I thinking?
Yeah, well, there are always things that you probably would revisit, but
right.
But I think what Tanisha is saying is more on the relationship thing. When you're 21, you're not thinking about anything except getting into bed with somebody, probably, and having that tingle. By the time you're 30, you've been to bed, so now you need more. And
right.
I think that's the basic difference. Sex plays a progressively less of a hysteria than in their early 20s.
Right.
By the time you've hit 30, 35, you know what you're doing. You've had sex, good sex, bad sex, and you're ready for more. But it has to be there. If the sex isn't there, forget it. You haven't got a relationship that's going to have any basis for anything.
Yeah.
So
Oh, no,
you've
I
said.
tell
So
you,
you've said.
I'm very big on sex and money are the biggest disruptors to a marriage and to relationships. If you don't have good sex, you're not going to have a good marriage. And if you don't have money, not a lot of money, but you have to have money to support what you need to do in life. You have to have food, you have to have housing, you have to have some kind of financial stability.
Yeah.
By the time you're 30, you know that. When
Yep.
you're
Yep.
25, you don't know that yet.
I have a question for you though. Do you think that it's so in the same way that it's possible to get more money, it's possible to move up in your career and like get more and more financial stability. Do you think the sex piece can also grow? So let's say that that's not there. You don't feel like it's the best in the beginning. Do you think that there's room for that to grow and develop as the relationship does?
Are you asking Grandma Gail?
Yes, yes, yes.
Grandma Gail believes that if the sex wasn't good in the beginning, it's not going to get much better. It may
Interesting.
maybe you'll have a conversation. This turns me on. That turns me on. Let's try it. But you have to have some form of a spark between two people. I don't think you can
So you're saying like
manufacture that.
sex can get better, but attraction can't grow. I feel like that's what you're saying. Cause like the actual, as you're saying, like
I'm not sure the sex gets better either. I think if you have good sex, you have good sex. Take it from somebody who knows. You're not going to develop better sex unless you're doing it by yourself.
But I think sex is like I think it's more of like an emotional act than a physical act, right? So I think if you have sex with somebody that you're not that familiar with, I don't think it's ever really that good, even if physically it feels good, because it's missing the emotional piece.
Right.
But don't you think like as you get to know somebody and they get to know you and your body and your likes and your dislikes, and you get to a point where you're comfortable saying, look, I like this, I don't like this, do this, don't do that, that it can get better?
Yes, Tanisha, but I think you can't create that. That has to be something that two people are striving for something better together. And it could be better right from the beginning.
meaning like if they think your sex life is fine and if you want to change
you're
it,
dissatisfied.
then it wouldn't work. It would have to be like both people.
I think both people have to say, you know what, I think we could do a little better in this area, in that area. But I think it shouldn't have to be such work. If it starts to be work, then you're already in the psychiatrist's chair. I think then it's a problem. So I would run away from that. And I also think you have to deal with somebody like Tanisha's saying, who are on equal economic levels, so that you at least have some kind of mutual conversations about things. You can't have somebody.
Well, does it have to be equal though? Because like,
it doesn't have to be equal, but it has to be somewhat. What would you say, Tanisha? It has to be compatible. And
I think it also depends on what each person is looking for. So I talk to a lot of men in particular who say, somebody's income doesn't actually matter to me, so for a guy like that, when I'm looking for somebody for him, it would be less about income and more about, so if he's like, look, I really need somebody who's nurturing and caring and, is more somebody that wants to be in the home, then that's what, I'm looking for. But I also, do talk to people that are like, look, I've worked really hard and I want a partner that can come in and give, the same amount to our household.
Right. Well, I think that's the same in every relationship, no matter who. I think that makes for good relationships. See, when we started out, we were so young, we didn't have any of those issues. So if the sex was good, then you didn't have a relationship. So, you had no money. But now, as you get older, because Tanisha is basically dealing with older couples or older individuals.
Well, they're not older. They're older than when you were.
Well, everybody's older than when I got married.
Yeah, but they're not old.
They're not old. They're more established.
Yeah.
Let's say that. The word is established.
So you even set up the first dates between the two people. How do you decide like where they go and what they do?
Yeah. So I am a huge fan of activity dates. I like dates where you're actually doing something, not necessarily just, sitting at dinner. Yeah. But just something where you can actually see somebody's personality. So one date that I did that I really liked was indoor rock climbing. And the reason I did it was because the guy loved doing it. And it was something he did all the time. Like it was like, just his weekend activity. The woman had never been. And she was like, she kind of didn't want to go. She was like, can we just like do dinner? And I'm like, I think this will be a really good opportunity for you just to see his personality. And also like, think about how he's going to react to you now. Like you've never done this before. You have no idea what you're doing. how he reacts to that is going to tell you so much about him, right?
Right.
Like, is he going to be patient and like kind and show you, or is he going to be like, hello, get up the wall, let's go.
Right.
So I like dates like that, where it's just like, you kind of can't hide. If you're sitting at dinner, I mean, you can really kind of say anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I actually love that. And I'm wondering, you do the work beforehand of the getting to know each other, kind of like, whereas on a first date, if I wasn't using a matchmaking service, I would have to ask all of the questions because I wouldn't know the answers of like, where are you from? What do you do? Whatever. That is kind of done beforehand. So if we wanted to take these lessons into our lives, let's say like we're not a part of the broom list, like, and I want my first date to be a rock climbing date, is that appropriate to say to someone like, hey, let's skip drinks and just go to this? Or do you think you have to have that step to kind of get the initial conversation out?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think all that stuff will come up. You know what I mean? Like you will eventually ask somebody about their siblings and their jobs and, but I really like, I'm like an action person. I like to see things, I like to just see you in action doing what you do. And that informs so much for me about who you are. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, for your second date, like every date shouldn't be like, we're going axe throwing and indoor rock climbing and so eventually that should come, but I do think it's a really good way just to like break the ice. And also whenever you have the opportunity to see somebody in their element, like take that opportunity. So, if you've met somebody on an app and they're like, I really love, painting, or like, that's like my creative hobby and that's what I love doing. Well, like, great. Like, let's go painting for the first date. Let me see you in that world.
Yeah. I love that.
That's great. I love it too. What's your success rate? Do you have?
So my success rate is 85%.
Wow. You're based in Puerto Rico.
Yep.
And so is it harder now or to see clients?
Yeah, everything's basically been virtual. So I do most of what I do over Zoom. And, I've had a couple clients that have come down here, which has been nice. So there's a couple that they just moved in together and their first vacation was to Puerto Rico. So we got to see them in person.
That's the other question I'm going to ask you. Now, these are mature adults that we're talking about. So when you say move in together, okay, that's the next stage. Now, in your mind or in these clients' mind, how long does a move in stay till they go to the next space? Could this be endless? I mean, could they be 80 years old by the time they put the ring on their finger? I mean, is there, I don't get it. To me, once they've made this commitment, they're established people, let's get on with it. But is there a time, do you see a tangible time frame or a logical time frame?
Yeah. So I think because most of these people come in on the same page, meaning these are people that want to get married and like want that together. I don't think that so much of a question is like, is this going to happen if we're right for each other? I do think though that there are stages, and I think those stages are appropriate. So like the couple that I was just talking about that just moved in together, they started seeing each other last April. Right. So they saw each other for about 2 months and then they decided to be exclusive. After that, there was a family wedding and they went and met each other's families, and then they spent the holidays with the families, and now they've moved in together in January. So I feel like this is all a good pace. And if all goes well, hopefully they'll be engaged within the year. But yeah, I don't think it takes forever to know, I tend to see things in threes. So like within 3 minutes of meeting somebody, if you want to spend 3 hours with them, within 3 hours, if you want to spend 3 dates, within 3 dates, if you want to spend 3 months, so that's how I tend to view things, but it doesn't take forever. So, I have a policy that you can put your membership on hold for up to 3 months. And the reason that it's 3 months is because if you've been seeing somebody for 3 months and this is not moving in the direction of exclusivity, like I'm going to match you with the next person. Right. Like why are we waiting at this, time and age?
Yeah.
Because we get so many calls for people who say that they've been going with this man for 3 years and he hasn't gotten engaged yet. I mean, made a final commitment. It seems like you're giving him too much leeway. In both, it could be either way, the male or the female. They have to say, no, there's a finite time. And if it's not right, we'll move on.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like, look, if you're a woman and you're in a relationship and you want a man to marry you, like you shouldn't have to beg him.
Yeah.
Like this shouldn't be like oh my God, I really want to get married. Why don't you want to make, like, if that is what you truly desire and he wants and loves you, you shouldn't have to beg him.
Right.
You should want it to.
But
Right.
yeah. Also, like when you're saying you set someone up on a date and they have a good time, let's say they say, okay, we're going to go on 3 dates, whatever. Do you suggest that they see people at the same time, or will you match people with multiple people at the same time? Or do you suggest that people like do one at a time?
Yeah, I always suggest one at a time. And that's because I think our attention can get so divided, you know, like I think sometimes what happens is people are dating multiple people at once. And like, let's say I'm dating 3 people. I think I'm giving everybody 30%. You know what I mean? Like I'm giving you 30% of my attention. You're getting 30% of me. And if I'm giving and getting that, what I'm judging you on that. So I'm not judging you at 100%. I'm judging the 30% of you I've seen. So I think it's almost better just to like get to know somebody, you know, with intention and with intensity, meaning like going out with them a couple times a week, really like really sharing, really asking the right questions, and then decide like, okay, so I've given 100%, you know, I spent a month with this person, I gave them 100%, they gave me 100%. If it's not right, okay, I'm going to move on. But there's no point in sort of like sprinkling, giving everybody a little here, a little there. Like you're never really giving and you're never really getting that.
But what if somebody asks you out that you want to say yes to while you're gone on a few dates with somebody else?
Well, I think you should go.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, you know,
exclusive with somebody.
Yeah, I'm not saying like, oh my gosh, like cut everybody else off and, you know, but I'm saying like, don't waste your time if you feel like this isn't it, and just to have people around, you know. So if you really like somebody, like, yeah, keep seeing that. And if somebody else asks you out, I think that's okay. But when you get to the point where you feel like your attention is divided, make a choice.
Yeah, I think that's what I was doing wrong for a really long time.
Well, you didn't really like any of them enough to be only.
Yeah, but then
one.
I shouldn't go on like 10 dates with each person. Like you should cut it off earlier.
Well, right. And sometimes it feels like that. Yeah, it feels like I think we date sometimes to just avoid loneliness, right? To avoid the feeling of like nobody's texting me, nobody's calling me. But if you're not being enriched by those interactions, then do something else with your time.
I also think that it was a very different dating the last year and a half. It really isn't dating the way we used to date, because you couldn't, you know, you were either on a Zoom or you were on.
Not even that.
It was harder. I think you can't. It's a very difficult time in this whatever endemic we're doing or whatever.
Well, for me in the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like I was just like, I want any social interaction. I'll go on a date.
Exactly.
Because my friends, like if they weren't around or like, you know, I was in a different state than a lot of my friends, and there are other people near me who want to go on a date. I'm like, oh, human interaction.
Well, but I think that's right. And I think it was good. It's just no drag it on is what Tanisha
right.
said.
Yeah.
After 3 dates that it's not going anywhere, just to have a date to keep you company, it's not fair.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, not really to keep company. It's more just like, oh, they're a nice person and we have a good time, but it should be more than that, I think.
I don't know. Do you think so, Tanisha? Can't you just have a friendship too? I mean,
so this is where things get blurry, right? So if you meet somebody and things are going well and you like them, but you can't see yourself ever having a romantic connection with them, it's okay to stay friends, but be clear about what this now is. You know, because if you meet somebody on a dating app, the theory there is like, we're here to date, so I want to date you. But anytime you feel a shift, just call it out. Just say like, you know, I've been enjoying getting to know you, and you know, but I don't see this romantically, but like, let's hang out as friends. Just so then one person is, because this is where it gets, you know, people get confused and now there's animosity because they don't know what it is and you haven't said, and there's this ambiguity. Like, just be clear about what it is at any stage.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So obviously my grandma and I are very open about these conversations. I was curious if you had a close relationship with any of your grandparents and if they ever gave you advice.
Yeah. So 2 of my 4 grandparents are still alive. So part of the reason I'm in Minnesota is to see my grandma that's here. Nice. She is very straightforward. She is very tell it like it is. And so we're also Jamaican, and Jamaican people are notoriously like she doesn't say a lot of things like tactfully, you know? So
say it.
the other day, you know, she's like, you look a little fat. And I'm like, I don't think I do, but okay. Like,
Seems like Jamaicans and Jewish grandmas have a lot in common.
Right. But the thing that she always says, and my mom always says too, is just like, you never know when you're going to meet that person. So like, always be prepared for that. So, I can be one to get on a plane looking like a crazy person. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And my mom is just like, you can't get on the plane like that. And I'm like, it's comfortable and I have a 6-hour flight, but okay. But her point is like, always look your best so that you feel your best, so that the best will come to you. And I would say that's a very good advice.
I agree.
You say that all the time. Like, I'm not putting makeup on tonight. And you're like, you never know who you're going to meet.
That's exactly right. And also makes you feel better.
Exactly.
If you're sloppy and you're in a bad mood and you're putting on just an old sweatshirt, that's going to be what you project. And I think it's smarter to try to put your best foot forward all the time.
Yep.
You don't have to be perfect, but try.
Yeah. And a big part of it,
you can't be like me all the time. That's perfection.
Oh yeah.
And I think you're right. The key is like how it makes you feel, right? So it's not even so much how you look to the outside world, but like when you look better, you feel better. And that is exactly the energy that people are going to see and be attracted to.
Totally.
Correct.
So I
love you, Tanisha. You're my new role model.
Thank you.
You're my new role model.
I wanted to end the episode with a little game that we play with all of our guests, Grandma Gail's old-fashioned dating quiz. So basically we go through a few things and we deem whether you're an old-fashioned dater or more of a modern dater.
I know what she's going to be already, but
Okay.
Really?
Go ahead, Kimmy. Yep.
I don't think
I'll put it on this piece of paper.
Okay. On the first one is, would you rather receive a call or a text from your date?
A call.
Oh, I messed up already.
I knew. Would you sleep with someone on the first date?
No.
Dating apps or setups?
Oh,
Like,
setups.
Would you move in together before getting engaged or wait until you're engaged or married?
Before.
And should one person in the relationship pay for the date or should you alternate?
I think the man should mostly be paying.
Okay, 4 out of 5 traditional.
I got fooled. I said, I have to say, I got messed up.
You're so confident.
I was sure.
Yeah, no, I think I'm more traditional probably than I come off, but yeah, I in even sometimes asking a lot of these questions to my clients, like I always do fall on the side of just, I just believe there's roles, and I think that the roles can like shift and alternate, but I do think overall, like it's important that each person understand what their role is. And for my role in a relationship, I do tend to think, like as the woman, I do act more nurturing and more feminine. And therefore I do sort of expect the man to be that more masculine, provider type of mentality.
The chaser.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
As you were saying, like what you ask your clients, is there any question that ever like stumps them or one that's like hard that's not obvious?
Really stump them. Sometimes I am surprised at some of the answers that I get. For example, one of the questions that I ask is, how important is sex to you on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being not important, 7 being, very important. And it's interesting because I guess I always think that, guys are going to always go on the 7 side of the scale, but, I'm often, sometimes surprised at the fact that, not every guy is like, oh my God, sex is so important. Like some of them are really sort of like evolved when it comes to that.
Unless they're lying to you because they want,
they want a good fix up.
Yeah, exactly. Tanisha, thank you so much for joining us. I love talking to you.
Thank you,
tell
lady.
our listeners how they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of the things, at Tanisha Wood or at The Broom List.
Hope you guys liked the episode with Tanisha Wood. You guys should go and follow her if you don't, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Excuse My Grandma. Rate us 5 stars wherever you're listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.